there's a population of people out there uniquely waiting on you to carry a message that only you can carry. And so I want to tell you a real quick story before we get to the main piece of the entree tonight, right? In 2015, I was walking out of Newport. Any of you guys been there? Right? Yeah? My 6th trip to prison. I had 19 felony convictions at this time. I had 2 COs, and they weren't like the ones here. They didn't love me. They weren't trying to pump me full of change. They were stigmatizing me. I had everything I owned in a brown paper sack, right? You guys know about that paper sack? Yeah. And you know what they were telling me as we were walking out the gate? See you soon. What else? You'll be back. We're going to leave the lights on. I'm going to tell Big Country to save me some noodles, right? And they had a right to think that, because all I ever knew was how to pilfer through a box full of phone chargers for 6 hours, right? Like, I was really good at insanity and drug use. I didn't know how to live a life. But what those COs didn't see was me getting introduced to recovery. So while they were stigmatizing me, they had no idea that I was going to be invited to the White House under the last 2 administrations. They had no idea that I would open the best reentry house in the country right here in Arkansas. Right? They had no idea. You guys got to understand, I was sitting in them same chairs whenever once in a while the guest speakers would come in. They had no idea that I would be a business owner, that I would start a non-profit, that I would write a book that would land itself into penitentiaries all over the country. I get tens of thousands of emails every day from men who are sitting right where you're at that are telling me they're homeowners, they're taxpayers. I've been able to help 16 states create reentry policies, man. Right? In 2017, I became the first parolee to get a state position, working under the man. Well, Austin, where'd you need? You sure enough need to be up front. He said, hey, listen, it hits different when it's one of us carrying the message, right? Yes, sir. So what I need you to know is what you're going through right now is not a disqualifier. You got a good governor in here, one who believes in change, and she's here now watching. Right? Job training to do what I'm doing right now. But guess who else is here to carry this net message? It's not just Jimmy McGill today, but we did bring you some books. The warden's got them. But guess who else is here to talk to you? Who? Jelly Roll!
Jimmy was super loud. Was he holding this thing or just screaming? My name is Jason Jelly Roll D. Ford. I'm from Nashville, Tennessee. I'm a country music singer that has a show tonight at the Simmons Bank Arena in Little Rock, Arkansas. All right. I'm here for one reason, and one reason only. I'm here because I believe that's what love does. I realized early in my recovery and early in my jail stints that love was an action word, which is a new concept for me because until that point, love for me was a manipulation word. Come on. Ooh, I started with some real shit early, didn't I? I was, listen, to all the people that are in this program or that run this program, even the sweet governor, I want y'all to know that I grew up in a trailer park and I still talk like it, so if I offend you, I'm sorry. Just know it's the native language of my tongue. I know some people like, we have a no cussing rule. He's going to blow it. I'm going to blow it. I'm sorry. I cuss when I pray. Me and God talk about it. We're working on it every day. We're working on it every day. When I was 14, I think actually 13 years old, I caught my first charge. That was enough of a charge that I was incarcerated. And what I like to do is just, for people, especially when I'm talking to people that are not convicts, I go into an explanation of how this works. When I'm talking to convicts, I just simply say, you can imagine what the next 12 years look like. A lot of the revolving door, right? And I probably spent a decade of those 12 sitting in rooms similar to this one. My story is, my daughter was, I had turned over a case and came back home on bond. And while I was going to trial for the case, I got a young woman pregnant. And that was the moment for me that when I got in jail, I knew that she was pregnant, but I was kind of too fucked up to care, frankly. And as I started getting sober, it started sitting on me a little bit, Week 2, week 3, week 4, you start doing, it starts to get a little different. Start thinking a little different. Well, by the time she got there, I was in the, I don't know, everybody has their own story. My story is every time I went to jail, I knew exactly where I was going. I was going right to the violent offender gang. For sure. I had too many robbery cases and tattoos to go anywhere else. And I'll never forget, this was my second time in this facility. It was the CCA, Corrections Corporation of America. They sucked so bad. And this unit, it was the unit we were in, had a sign-up sheet on the doors for the education pod. It's where you can get your GED. Now, I am a 25-year-old, 24-year-old man that does not have a GED. And I'm reading at about a 7th grade education level. I know that because I use that as an excuse every time the judge would talk to me. Sir, can you read or write? Your Honor, I only did a 7th grade level. I immediately would defend myself with that. And it was funny though, because every time I went to this facility, nobody ever actually signed up to go to the education. By the 3rd time I was there, I was like, why is that fucking sheet of paper there? Nobody's ever going to sign it. I'll never forget the old dude looked at me and said, that's the check. I said, oh. That was the concept of that sheet of paper in this facility. Y'all been in facilities like this. I might as well went to the door with my bus tub and said I was scared. Right. Might as well. Hey, I'm scared. I might as well just made a big scene. So I was like, well, I guess I'm not going to do my GED here either. And I did what we all do in those situations. I ran the poker table. And the day, it's like, if you can't do good, do double bad. You know what I mean? And I tell you that part of the story because I think you'll relate to this moment that I had. Because I used to lie to people because they didn't understand it. And it was cool for non-convicts to imagine something magical happening. I'd be like, they knocked on my cell door. They said, you have no girl. And it was like, the sky opened and Saul turned to Paul and I was an apostle right then. I don't know what happened. And the truth is, I know exactly what happened. I just don't talk to non-convicts about what happened to them. It's embarrassing to say. When they knocked on my door and said I was responsible for another human, even though I knew this woman was pregnant, it was a face of reality to me. So I did a real self-assessment for the first time in my entire fucking life. A real self-assessment. One where you sit down and go, what do I have for this new child? I had 60 suits. I had 30 honey buns. I was running the poker table. I thought I was killing it. I was on fire. I had the outfit that I wore to jail. Just like most of you, I had burnt that relationship, and along with burning that relationship, my clothes were burnt as well. I knew I had nothing to come home to. I had no shoes. I was going to have to wear the jail shoes when I got out because I got arrested in my socks. And I was like, I'm going home with socks and suits. And it's happened during count time, when they bring you all the good news. And so you can ruminate on it. It's so good for our mental health. I sat there and thought about it for a couple hours, and as soon as they popped the door, y'all, I beelined to that education sign-up sheet. Yeah. You could have heard a mouse piss on cotton. The whole unit goes, what is he doing? We just see him there watching, and I'm walking with authority too. I go and I sign up and I turn around just to take the heat off of me. I go, Tony, come here, I'm gonna give you all my soup so you can run the poker table. And I just, alpha my way out of there the best I could with my ego at the time. And I went down to the education unit, I took it, and to get a GED, how many of y'all got your GED? How many of y'all got it while you're in jail? How many of y'all are trying to get it right now? First of all, I'm so proud of y'all. I want to tell you this story because, especially for y'all, because this was the first, when I look back at my story, this was my first really, really big win. But it was a little win, but all wins are wins now, you know? And I remember I went down there and I took the practice test and I passed. And right then I was like, I knew I was manipulating these people, but I didn't know I was this smart. I was like, maybe I'm a little further, you know? I was like, maybe I'm really getting along here. And I went and took the actual test and I passed it. And what happened then was I got scared because they were sending me back to the unit I belonged in. I came and got it and I was like, wow. Something Jimbo said that echoes in my ears right now when he said he didn't have anybody pouring recovery until, you know, it's kind of the old, I use this analogy when I go speak to corrections corporations, the other side of this room, when they wear suits. And I always reference the point of that. But I do remember thinking, I'm more likely to change down here. This is the new playground, new play with that I'm here about. So I went to my sheriff, and we had quite a history at that point. The warden, I said, I know it sounds crazy, but you asked the sheriff if I can stay down here. And at the time, I would have been the only exemption in the history of CCA that allowed a man with my criminal history of robberies and attempted homicides to be on what they call the short hauls. Where people, like, not people who shot me. You know what I mean? That call. And he agreed. He let me go to a program. And I went into it initially just to try to pass time. But man, my heart started to soften in a way that I never thought my heart would soften. My spirit started to change. All this shit I was having to read, hearing every day, I started actually listening to it. I think I said the Serenity Prayer 1,000 times before I actually listened to it. And then I was like, oh, I see why they say this. This is real. This is real. I remember when I first started getting my shit together when somebody would go, it works. Oh, it made me so mad. Oh, in the early phase, I would be infuriated when I did it. You know what I mean? The only thing that made me equally as mad is when I was walking down the hallway and somebody would go, God's good. It infuriated me. I fucking was so mad every time. And as my heart started softening. Y'all know this part of the story too, huh? Now I'm the guy walking the room saying, hey, God's good. And somebody goes all the time, I go, and all the time? God's good. You know, I'm that guy. But it's, I say all this to tell you that wherever you're at and you're part of that journey, you're on the right journey. But that's, you like that, didn't you? It's okay. Two things I learned in life, man, is that God is going to meet you where you are, and so is music. And I want to just share the spirit with y'all about this too. I've never met a drug addict that didn't like every month sober. Jimmy McGill's an example of that. I've seen him as a drug addict, and I've seen him as a not drug addict. Two totally different people. One dude's kind of dark and obnoxious. The other dude's really light, vibrant, and a little obnoxious. But it's the truth. And I've also never seen a drug dealer that didn't know better math than anybody that works in the hotel. I want to tell y'all this, man. I was in the streets, and I remember days where I would have people that would sleep 2 or 3 hours in a car on a sidewalk, and I would watch them wake up and chase drugs non-stop for the other 21 hours a day. Barefooted. Glass. I mean, I've seen people do crazy things for drugs. I've seen drug dealers wake up out of a dead sleep to sell a $10 rifle. I mean, and act like they were answering the phone for their parole officer. Dead sleep. Hello? Yes, I'll be on the way. 10, it's fucking 5 o'clock in the morning. Now listen, they don't like it when I tell y'all this in recovery, but you know what we call that? It's called work ethic. Yeah, well, I don't want to hear that. I don't got a good work ethic shit. I've seen what we will do for nothing. Imagine what we will do for something. The last thing I want to share with y'all is it's important to share when I talk to people is, when I first started doing this, when I would come do shows, I would come to jails, and then some jails did me, some jails didn't. The jails that did were always a little harder to roll the room up. The ones that did were a little easier, but I remember leaving the first few days, and some guy, when I was walking out, I'll never forget, I heard, you know how my friends are. He goes, yeah, I guess all we got to do is learn how to write songs, and we can be rich and famous too. And I wanted to turn around and slap him, but I changed. And that was first thought wrong. Second thought was like, you know what, man, I remember being that guy. I remember thinking that way. I remember it being everything was wrong but me. It could happen. I had no accountability. But then I thought about it. I was like, you know what? Maybe that's the part of the story that I'm not telling people is the most important part. Is that the story I just told you, I was an unknown rapper. I was you. I was inmate 003644950. That's what I was. And I went home, and it wasn't that this magical thing happened in a one way that I became famous. I didn't even go home and try to write a song for a year. I went home and tried to be a good father. I went home and I started restoring and repairing relationships that I had spent decades tearing down. I had to go spend a lot of time proving to myself, to my mama, that I was still the sweet boy she knew when he was 10. You know, I had a lot of work to cover, man. I wasn't concerned about being fucking famous. It wasn't even a thought. When people say, Jelly Roll, is this everything you dreamed of? I say, no. You think I sat in prison with the courage to dream I'd be selling out 57 arenas across America? I'd be nominated for Grammys, singing at Emmys. I'd be doing Rock and Roll Hall of Fame shit. I didn't dream of any of this, y'all. I just dreamed of getting sober and being a fucking dad. I said that to say, I don't know what your North Star is. I hope it's your sobriety, but I hope it becomes your children. I hope it's your mother. I hope it's your brother. I can promise you, you're not going to go home and make up for this last time. Every decision you've made in your life, the fact that you're feeling that shame and guilt of being 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years old in here right now, still going through this same cycle, is because you're stuck in that same shame cycle, man. I was nominated for New Artist of the Year and won that motherfucker at 39 years old. I'll be 40 in December. The same year I turned 40 is the same year I was nominated for my first Grammy. I was the oldest person nominated for New Artist of the Grammys in the history of the Grammys. And rightfully so, I lost to a 23-year-old woman who was actually a new artist. Man, I just love y'all. I believe it, man. I do believe that this is the beginning of change. I believe y'all just being here and receptive is the beginning of it. And don't rush it when you get home. You're not going to make up for it, man. You're not going to make up for it, dude. Just take it real slow. Focus on one little mountain at a time, dog. I know how it is when you get home. Y'all got your list. I get my license. I'm going to do this. You got all these big plans, and they're great because visions are important. Man, take your time. Go home, smell the rose, and kiss that kid on the head, take